Page 77, Monday, September 11th. I was up for a long time last night listening to the rain. It was still raining when Mom dropped me off at the guardhouse. I stood next to Joey, but neither one of us had much to say. Lake Windsor Middle School is a very uncomfortable place to be when it's raining. Hundreds of kids crowd into the walkways between classes. The kids with umbrellas smack them into each other. The kids without umbrellas panic because they're trapped in the cold, pounding rain, unable to move behind the kids with umbrellas. I was one of the kids with umbrellas, even though the coolest guys don't carry them. Of course, the coolest guys don't have to take off their glasses and dry them before they can see again either. It was still pouring during third period when a kid came into my math class in P19. He was soaking wet and holding one of those wooden office passes. The teacher, Mr. Ward, called me up to the front and said, "You're wanted in Mr. Murrow's office right away." I let the kid with the pass share my umbrella as we crossed over the ocean of mud and ducked into the building. When we got to Mr. Murrow's office, I noticed Mrs. Gates and Coach Walski standing with him next to his desk. Lined up on a long couch against the opposite wall were Joey, Adam, and other two guys from our group at the carnival. I went over and sat with them. Mr. Murrow started speaking. He was angry. "I want you boys to tell me exactly what happened at the carnival on Saturday." He paused and then added, "You were all at the carnival on Saturday, were you not?" Nobody answered until Joey spoke up and said, "Yes, sir, we were there." Joey didn't say anything else, so Coach Walski intervened. "We know we know that you were there, boys, because I gave you all tickets. That's how we've all come to be in Mr. Moore's office today. Now, maybe you don't know what this is all about, so I'll tell you. Mrs. Gates got a phone call on Saturday from the sheriff's department." Mr. Murrow picked up the story from here. His tongue was more reasonable now, more like Coach Walski's. "The Tangerine County Sheriff's Department received a complaint from the owners of the carnival that one of their exhibits was vandalized by boys from a soccer team. They called Mrs. Gates and asked her to help find out exactly what happened to the exhibit." He checked the name on a piece of paper. "The Wonders of the World exhibit." Joey was quick to respond, "Hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We ran the exhibit, yeah, but we didn't do anything to it." Everybody on the couch agreed except me. I knew immediately what had happened and who had done it. I really didn't want to rat out those soccer guys, but I was the only one who had seen them going in. It had to be me. I raised my hand up limply and said, "I think I know who did it." All three adults turned to me. Mr. Murrow said, "Okay, who did it?" When I came out of the exhibit, I saw a bunch of guys from Tangerine Middle going in. I think they were soccer players. Why do you think that? Well, sir, they were carrying a ball. The three adults looked at each other and then they smiled. The rest of us started to relax. Joey said, "Yeah, I saw those guys too, on the way in and on the way out. They were bad news, no question about it." Coach Walski said to Joey, "Did you recognize any of them from our game last year?" Joey was certain. "Oh, yeah, they were definitely from that team. Think they were all starters. Never saw 'em going into the freak show, so I didn't know who you're talking about at first, but yeah, definitely. They're the guys you're looking for." Mrs. Gates seemed relieved and happy. She said, "Thank you very much, boys. I guess you solved this mystery. I wish they were all so easy to solve." Mr. Murrow added, "I'm glad it was just a case of mistaken identity. I didn't think you guys would do anything like this. All right, why don't you go ahead and get back to class? And thank you too, Coach." Coach Walski told him, "I know the coach at Tangerine Middle. Her name is Betty Bright. Call Betty and tell her what happened. She'll round those kids up." Mr. Murrow picked up the phone as we all piled out into the hall. Nobody said anything. When we got to the outside door, I asked Joe if he wanted to walk under my umbrella. Adam and the other two kids were too cool to have umbrellas, so they took off and ran through the rain toward their portables. I stopped still when we got outside the building, right at the entrance to the boardwalk. This whole thing was really bothering me, so I said to Joey, "Hey, we ratted those guys out." Joey seemed puzzled. "Yeah, so what? They're never going to know who we are." "Oh, no? Who knows what Merle's going to say to this Betty Bright? He might tell her our names." "No way. It's not like we're testifying in court or filing out affidavits. Our names aren't on anything." "Listen to yourself. You sound like a lawyer." "Oh, give me a break, Fisher. Do you want to take the rap for something you didn't do?" "No." Joey paused for a moment and asked, "So, how come you took off at the carnival?" "I don't know." I paused too. I finally said, That Adam kid, is he going out with Carrie Gardner? Is that the deal? Adam? Adam's a geek. So what does that mean? Is he going out with her or isn't he? Not that I know of. Why? You want to go out with her? No. Why should I? Well, hey, she obviously likes geeks. Why shouldn't you? I stood there trying to think of a comeback when suddenly I heard a whooshing sound, like the sound you get when you open a vacuum sealed can of peanuts. Then the brown water that had puddled up all over the field began to move. It began to run toward the back portables like someone had pulled a plug out of a giant bathtub. Next came a crack, crack, cracking sound. The boards began to come apart and the loose mud under the walkways began to slide toward that giant bathtub drain. One after another, the doors of the portables opened and the teachers looked out, staring into the dense rain, trying to spot the cause of all this commotion. Mr. Ward opened the door of portable 19. He stepped out onto the porch and looked around back. Across the fields, the kids from Miss Alvarez's portable came walking out with their belongings in single file, like they were supposed to do on a fire drill. Other teachers saw that and started their kids out too. But suddenly there was a larger sound. A louder whoosh turned every head and opened every eye in that rainy field. Then the walkway started to heave up and down, making terrible, splintering noises. Immediately, kids started screaming and vaulting over the handrails, landing in the ankle-deep mud. Another whoosh, and more violent cracking sounds followed. Then every seventh and eighth grader started to pour out of these portables, some still calm, some panicking. There was instant and total chaos in the back row, the one nearest to the football field, because the portables themselves were starting to break apart and move. The kids came diving out, jamming in the doorways, pushing into the backs of other kids, knocking each other flat on the disintegrating boardwalk. They knocked each other into the moving mudslide that was now swirling in a circle around them. What is it? I yelled to Joey. An earthquake? No, a sinkhole, man. It's a sinkhole. It's opening up under the field. Look at 19. I looked and saw the entire portable being swallowed up by the mud. Its roof now where its porch steps should be. I yelled, "That's my math class!" Joey shouted back over the din, "They must all be trapped in there." I didn't even think about it. I yelled back, "Come on!" We ditched my umbrella and jumped out of the way as the first panicked wave reached the building. We pushed around the bottleneck of screaming kids forming at the door. Stepping carefully, we sloshed and fought our way through the mud to Portable 19. We joined some eighth graders in a kind of bucket brigade extending from the field down into the sinkhole. They were grabbing the hands of the kids who were trapped in the portable and pulling them up step by step to the edge of the hole. Some of those guys must have been 10 feet below ground level at this point, and the sinkhole was still deepening and spreading. The mud continued to swirl around us in a rapid, clockwise motion. Empty of kids, Portable 16 fell right over, roof first, into the far end of the hole. Portables 20 and 21 were balanced on the rim of the crater, about to go. Joey and I dug our heels into the mud about halfway down toward the bottom of the hole. We pulled and grabbed at kids as they made their way up the slippery incline to the top. Some of them were so frightened that they didn't want to let go of us, but we pushed them along anyway, up to the next guys. I lost my balance twice and fell into the mud, but I managed to right myself quickly. My glasses were so caked with mud that I could no longer see anything clearly. I must have pulled 20 kids up before I heard Mr. Ward's voice yell, "That's it! That's everybody! Let's get out of here!" Those of us in the middle of the line helped the guys from the bottom to climb out. Then they pulled us up. I heard Mr. Ward yell again, "There goes 17 and 18!" And I heard the sounds of portable 17 and 18 splitting apart. The whooshing was getting louder, and I felt afraid for the first time, afraid that we might all get sucked down and drown in the mud. We moved out in a tight group, holding on to each other through the field of moving slop and splintering boards. Finally, we pushed our way inside the main buildings, out of the rain. I tried to clean my glasses on my sopping, filthy shirt. No way. Someone snatched the glasses away from me right out of my hands. It was a big guy with a towel, and he proceeded to wipe them clean. He said, "Mars, my man, good work out there." I knew that voice. I said, "Thanks, Gino." He placed them carefully on my head and said, "Sucks what they did to you, Mars. Told Coach Walski that too. You're the best seventh grade four-eyed Martian goalie in the entire country." Thanks, Gino. I appreciate that. He started to move on with his towel, but he turned to add, "They should have bent the rules for you, Mars. They've been the rules for other guys. Lots of them, so they should have been them for you." I watched Gino head off into the sea of muddy and miserable kids. Sirens started to wail outside. Then the loudspeakers crackled to life. This is Mrs. Gates. We are experiencing an extreme emergency. Please listen carefully and do exactly as I say. First, any injured student should come immediately to the office. No student who is not injured should attempt to come to the office at this time. All other students should move calmly and quietly to their afternoon bus stops or pickup points. Should buses have already been dispatched to drive you home? School buses have already been dispatched to drive you home. If you cannot go home at this time, you should proceed out the front entrance and walk to the high school gymnasium. Mrs. Gates repeated this speech twice more as I worked my way out the front door and turned left to my bus stop. I hooked up with Joey again there. He said he'd heard that there were kids with broken arms and legs all over the office. Convoy of ambulances, police cars, and fire engines turned into the entranceway, their sirens wailing and their lights flashing. The rain continued to hammer down, pounding on the long line of kids trudging north, around the football stadium, toward the high school gymnasium. Our bus pulled into the circular drive, and we climbed on board patiently and politely, slopping mud all over the aisle floors and the seats. The bus driver said she had instructions to take us all right to our doors. I was shivering, and my teeth were chattering by the time I got home. I let myself in through the side door to the garage and went into the laundry room. I peeled off my shirt, socks, shoes, and pants and dumped them all into the washing machine. Then, wearing only my undershorts and streaked head to foot with mud like one of those lost guys from the Amazon rainforest, I went in to break the news to Mom.